Jackson State is your 2020 Celebration Bowl champions, and for me, this win is a statement for TC Taylor. Oh yeah, it's locked on HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Make a Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off doesn't mean that the journey's over. Just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com to make every moment more. And if you're new to FanDuel, you get $150 back in bonus bets if you put down a $5 bet. But you have to ensure that that $5 bet does win. Go to FanDuel.com to make every moment more. This is all about the Celebration Bowl. We'll wrap up today's episode with a look at the self-inflicted wounds that I really do feel like put South Carolina State in a deeper coffin. I don't know with the way Jackson State was playing if it would have mattered, but it was a much more dominant victory because of some of the self-inflicted wounds. But here I am getting all the way into segment 3. That's how excited I am about today's episode. Segment 2, we're going to take a look at Jacobian Morgan because to me, he was the surprise of the Celebration Bowl, and how much he carried the offense for Jackson State is something I want to highlight. But first and foremost, this win is great for Jackson State. It is their first ever Celebration Bowl victory. However, to me, this means so much more for TC Taylor. It means a lot for the university, and I could argue that Jackson State winning the Celebration Bowl when they did is a statement for not only the coach, but also the university. First and foremost, do we realize that we're in an offseason where we see countless coaches get fired after their second season? Mississippi Valley State, Delaware State, North Carolina A&T, right? That's just to name a few. We've seen coaches be fired after 2 seasons this offseason. The year ended with a coach winning the championship, not just his conference, right? Not just being at the top of his division, but this ended with a Black national champion coming in the form of a second-year head coach. This is a statement win for TC Taylor, and the reason is, if you ever doubted him, it's time to stop. In an offseason where we've seen countless head coaches get fired after 2 seasons, we've seen one guy say after year 1, I'm going to take more on my plate. I'm going to remodel this staff. After already remodeling this team, I'm going to become the offensive coordinator. I'm going to be the play caller. We've seen a guy who in year 2 said, I'm going to take more on my plate, and we've seen what happened in the aftermath, and that is a Black college national championship. This is fantastic what TC Taylor has done. To me, this is a statement victory because I wanted to make sure that I set the scene appropriately. But this pushes all the talk of the previous regime from the haters away, in my opinion. I don't feel like you have any leg to stand on anymore. You did at one point, not really, but I understood what you were trying to do. But now when you look at the previous regime and what they were able to do, I had somebody ask me, this is interesting. I had somebody ask me if TC Taylor is still in the shadow of Deion Sanders. My answer was no. This happened before the Celebration Bowl. However, I understood where the question was coming from. If he was under the shadow to anybody, that's gone now. There is no more shadow. And I would say the same thing for the university because in year 2, they won a Celebration Bowl. And it has nothing to do with the fact of what they didn't do in the previous regime. It's the fact that this regime right here won a Celebration Bowl in 2 seasons. I don't want to hear about the old guy anymore. And you don't get the whole, well, he only did it with his players because people do that with new coaches. You only won with that guy's players. TC Taylor remodeled the staff, remodeled the roster. He had to start from scratch, and he did this in 2 seasons to become the Black college football national champion. This is a statement victory for TC Taylor, a statement victory for the Jackson State Tigers, because if anybody wanted to say they were under this shadow because of the personality, because of all of the attention, that's gone. Success has erased it. Success has erased the idea of a shadow, right? And that's no disrespect to what happened. I didn't know how to articulate this until probably now, if I'm going to be completely honest. This isn't in my notes. I didn't know how to articulate this without sounding like I was taking a shot at the past regime for not being able to win this game, right? And that's real. I think accomplishing what the previous regime didn't should forcibly get rid of the shadows. But at the same time, it feels like I'm trying to discredit what happened over there, and that's not what's happening right now. It's simply about what I accomplished and no more comparisons. See, that's my thing. I think the shadow is comparison, and it's the constant mentioning of it. That's the shadow. The shadow is, it's more than just you'll never be Deion Sanders. It's more than that. The shadow for me is everything I do has to be compared to Deion Sanders. I don't think that's the case anymore, which is why I choose to focus on TC Taylor and his statement victory as this is the way that the mentions stop. No more attention, no more. And it was ignorant when they would say, Prime made Jackson State. It was ignorant, but it was based in recency bias, and I understood the ignorance. At this point, I won't. At this point, I would have I would have no idea where it's coming from. I would not feel like it's logical, right? I think logical ignorance is a bit of an oxymoron, but we can understand why somebody just doesn't know. At this point, you choosing to hate, and that's what it would be. And I also want to say this is a statement victory for how they done it. When you look at it only taking 2 seasons for TC Taylor, they were dominant. This is a consistent 30-point team, and I understand they didn't do that in this game, but they didn't need to. And they dominated the Celebration Bowl in a way that I did not expect. That's the one thing I didn't expect in this game was a domination either way. And it happened for Jackson State. And I'd say one of the reasons I was most surprised it happened for JSU is looking at the final box score. If I looked at the final box score and it told me that Irv Mulligan had the day that he had, I would have predicted Jackson State lost. But that's the reason that Jacobian Morgan, the quarterback, is the surprise of the Celebration Bowl, and we'll expand on that as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and FanDuel is the official sports book of the Locked On Podcast Network. The college football playoffs are here. It's this week. It starts Friday, right? I can't wait. I'm going to a Christmas party. They better have the game on the TV. That's all I know. And if you're watching the show right now, have the game on the TV. I'll be seated there before everybody else gets there. That's another way for you to make money. That's the extension of college football. We're getting into bowl season if you want to try that too. If you want to go into the professional ranks, because we still have 3 more weeks left in the regular season, plus the playoffs. We have Christmas Day games. We have Christmas Day football and basketball. We have so many sports for you to make money on. The only place I would suggest for you to do it is FanDuel.com. And if you go to FanDuel right now and you're new to FanDuel, you get $150 back in bonus bets when you put down your first $5 winning bet. So make sure you win and get your bonus bets. Go to FanDuel.com today to make every moment more. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen, make sure you're checking out Locked On College Football. I told you the college football playoffs are here, so check out not only UT, well, both Tennessee and Texas. Check out Locked On College Football. Check out Locked On Ducks. Check out them all, because this is the time for the biggest event in college football. Right now, I want to break down the biggest event in HBCU football, which is the Celebration Bowl. It happened just this Saturday in Atlanta, Georgia. It was Jackson State versus South Carolina State, and JSU came out with a dominant victory. And the surprising part is the domination. I couldn't have predicted that this would be the outcome coming into the game. Hey, Transparency for anybody who didn't see. I thought that South Carolina State was going to win this game. I did, but I expected it to be close. And I always said it could go either way. And this was not to be a cop out, though it kind of feels like one now. This was meant to tell you how I thought the game would transpire. I don't give predictions. It's not my gig. I'm just being honest with you. But at the same time, it's the Celebration Bowl. We spice it up. We do things a tad bit differently when it's the biggest game of the season. I said that South Carolina State will come out victorious, but I didn't think it would take the ball bouncing too many ways to have JSU do it, which meant I expected a close game no matter what. Jackson State came in and proved me wrong on two levels. The first level is we won. Let's get that out the way. I was wrong in my prediction. And then not only that, we're dominating. We talked about that with TC Taylor, about how he kept his team dominant throughout the season. It was very few games that they struggled. But this game in particular went a different kind of way. This game in particular surprised me because it wasn't Irv Mulligan. If I were to tell you, because why did I just go on that long exposition for this? It's to set the scene on how I thought the game would transpire going in. Now walking out, if I just looked at the box score and you blinded me, or you just matter of fact you covered up, right? Let's say I'm covering up part of the screen for my video people that I'm covering up right now. It's the final score, and I'm just looking at the box score, and I saw Irv Mulligan with 25 carries for 71 yards and 2 touchdowns. Admittedly, 2 short touchdowns though, but 2 touchdowns. I would assume that Jackson State lost that game. I would ignore the 2 touchdowns and I would look at the 25 for 71 and I would say, wow, Irv Mulligan, best running back in black college football, held under 3 yards. There's no way that Jackson State won this game. Partially defense, right? Partially defense, but they still put up 28. They still put up a good number of points, and that's because of Jacobian Morgan. I was watching the game. I don't know who the official Celebration Bowl MVP was, but I do know on the broadcast, at least, they gave it to Fortillion. And I'm all for Fortillion. I thought that it was Jacobian Morgan. I'm glad they gave him the MVP. That was the most logical thing, in my opinion. But they gave it to Jonas Fortillion. And I didn't agree because I thought that, hey, the quarterback gets it over the wide receiver 9 times out of 10, and this is not going to be the 10. Jacobian Morgan was a player that Jackson State didn't want to start going into this game. I'm just going to be honest with you. Not the team, but the fans. I heard it in my comments. I can't speak for all Jackson State, but in my comments, it was a heavy Zy McDonald favor, okay? This was not a player that people were looking forward to, and I've heard some criticism of him throughout the season. When I was hyping up Irv Mulligan, I kept saying they could throw. They could throw. Am I telling you this or am I telling myself this? I don't know. I may be trying to make myself feel better for being wrong, but I knew they could throw. One thing that surprised me is the degree to which they threw the football successfully. I thought that it'd be a good compliment, but they came out in the first drive and you saw it. They had more success through the air than on the ground immediately. Jackson State dominating was surprising, yes, but Jackson State dominating Jackson State dominating was surprising, but Jackson State dominating while the majority of their offense came through the air was even more surprising. Because you've seen at the beginning, stop Irv Mulligan. Cool, got it. They did it. Third and a decent amount. I wouldn't say long. I think it was third and long. Yeah, third and long. You throw it. First down. Had a couple of those. Third and obvious passing, and you do it. I thought to myself, this is strange. If this keeps up, Irv Mulligan will pick it up, and Jackson State's going to win this game. That didn't happen, but Jackson State still won this game. You're looking at 233 yards from Jacobian Morgan. You're looking at those 2 throws to Fortillion for a touchdown, particularly that second one that went over the shoulder. It was such beautiful location. And I know a pass that's not going to get a lot of shine because it was a long run after the catch is his throw to Isaiah Spencer. The one that was right down the middle. It was kind of like it looked like a slant. I can't tell it. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think it was a slant. And we're not going to give that any shine because it was a short pass that went for a long distance. So, of course, we have to praise the person with the ball in his hand. But at the same time, the timing and the placement of the football played a huge part in why they were able to have that play. You've seen that play countless times. The guy going, let's just call it a slant. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but I think it was a slant. Guy going upfield, the ball's on his back shoulder. He has to stop, or maybe he has to settle in. He has to catch it. But he hit him in stride. Boom. And we gone. That was a beautiful placement of the football. And sometimes when I talk about these things, because I know how I sound, guys, I'm not ignorant. I know that I have a certain energy level. And sometimes I think I make the simple things sound like amazing aspects of the game. It's not purposeful, but I also can't take it out. It's just it's who I am. Okay. This is not to hype up what he did or overhype what he did, but it's to say that these things are important. Placement of the football does not get a lot of attention until it's bad, but a good placement a lot of times gets overlooked. I won't allow it to be overlooked here. Like, to me, geez, that was a loud splash of the water. Yeah. Stay hydrated, folks. But for me, it's those little things. And then early in the game, he's making plays with his legs that aren't 30-yard runs. If you're looking for Jacobian Morgan to wow you, if you're looking for Jacobian Morgan to make you say, oh my God, I don't think that this was the game. But if you're looking for Jacobian Morgan to show you how to be a good quarterback, this was the game. You did get what you wanted here. Your thirst is quenched if you're looking for a quality performance. But if you're looking for eye-popping, if you're looking for highlights, if you're looking for wow, I don't know if he gives that to you in general. He's not a super highlight runner. When he runs the football, he's a bigger guy. I thought that he got a good 3 yards when it was Irv. And you seen them selling out to stop Irv, because why wouldn't you? It's the most important aspect of your defense if you're South Carolina State. Then you get you selling out for Irv? Boom, take this read. Bow. I'm going to get me a couple of yards. I didn't do too much, but I got me just enough. I got me a couple of yards to stay ahead of the chains. That would have been a -1. Instead, it's a +3. That's what I saw out of Jacobian Morgan. I got to give him his praise. I thought he did a really good job on Saturday. If you would have told me that Irv Mulligan had 25 carries for 71 yards, I would tell you it sounds like South Carolina State did exactly what they needed to do, and they probably won the game. That was not the truth, because Jacobian Morgan stood up. A long touchdown, a long pass that almost made it to a touchdown, ended up with an Irv Mulligan 1-yard TD. He had 2 beautiful throws to Fortillion. I think Fortillion is going to be a guy. He is a really good red zone threat. And I know he has some time to season. He has some time to get ready. But I think when it's time for him to hit the league, Fortillion has a skill set that I want to see if somebody wants to take a chance on. But Jacobian Morgan, biggest game of the year, and you showed up. I can't say that about the opposing quarterback. Eric Phoenix did not show up in the biggest game of the season. And I think his self-inflicted wounds, along with some other things that South Carolina State did, made this a game that was not close. It was not close because of these self-inflicted wounds. And let's look at this as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by the college football playoffs, because it's that time of the year. The college football playoff is back, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoff begins December 21st. Starting with the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into our first matchup, the Southern Methodist University Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. As wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3, and I thank you 2 times for that. We looked at Jackson State. We looked at the TC Taylor statement victory. No more shadow, no more comparisons. Keep that man where that man is, because this man right here is right where he needs to be. Then we looked at Jacobian Morgan, because with Irv Mulligan's performance, Jacobian Morgan stepping up was major. Excuse me. But now we get to the losing side. Now we get to self-inflicted wounds by South Carolina State. I want to be very clear. We're going to talk about Jackson State and their ability to stop the secondary, or excuse me, their secondary's ability to stop the wide receivers on tomorrow's episode. This was not all on South Carolina State. But what we are about to focus on is the part that was to blame on the Bulldogs. I do believe that as good a job as Jackson State did, they were aided by some self-inflicted wounds. What do I mean by that? I got to give a whole lot of credit to the JSU secondary and the JSU defense, because I do not believe that there was a lot of opportunities for South Carolina State to get loaded offensively. But what I will say is the opportunities did present themselves occasionally, and on said occasions, there was not the production that we were used to. I don't want to hear about rust. I don't want to hear about it, because for years, this Celebration Bowl has been happening, and the MEAC has had a longer time off than the SWAC, and they have a winning record in this game. Time off is a SWAC argument. It should not be a MEAC argument. Do I understand the idea of rust? Yes, I do. I 100% understand the idea of rust. But if we've been living for years talking about how you've dominated this game and you told me, hey, time off means nothing. For all the years that the SWAC was complaining about the time off argument, the MEAC was telling me, telling us, telling anybody who would listen that time off does not matter. Now that Jackson State and FAMU have won back-to-back Celebration Bowls, not only does time off matter, it's a negative. Come on. That feels fraudulent. And I'm not even trying to say it don't have any merit. I'm just saying you've broken down the merit over years. And I don't mean broken down as an explain. I mean broken down as it's now non-existent. I don't want to hear that argument. Maybe if you get 3-4 in a row loss-wise, then maybe we'll look at that. But right now, it feels like sore loser mentality. It feels like we're grasping for something. And hey, if you want to say, yeah, time off just doesn't matter. How much time you have in between games, irrelevant. Cool. I'll rock with you. We can just stay in the middle. I don't think that rust was a problem for the majority of their team. I think that rust might have been a problem for Eric Phoenix, who didn't play football for a while. I could see that because he was coming back from an injury. But here's the thing. Jackson State was just balling. Jackson State was just playing good defense. In the times when they didn't, Eric Phoenix did not look like himself, and he picked a terrible time to play a terrible game. But I thought when there was opportunities, he was inaccurate. I thought that when he was accurate and there were opportunities, there were drops. You seen that. There was a drop in the touchdown. I mean, in the end zone for a touchdown. They just dropped it. There was times when you had that same slant pass that I talk about Jacobian Morgan throwing to Isaiah Spencer and hitting him in stride. You seen that exact same play with Eric Phoenix. And I can't remember the receiver that he threw it to, but it was high. It was above him. It was bad. It didn't look good. We talk about ball placement when it's bad. That was bad ball placement. That was missing an opportunity. That offense did not get humming into the fourth quarter. Eric Phoenix was benched. Chennis Berry benched his MEAC Offensive Player of the Year, HBCU National Player of the Year in the biggest game of the season. I think that tells you how poorly that he was playing. Opponent aside. And yes, he got put back in the game. But opponent aside, if Jackson State was just doing crazy stuff, I don't think Eric Phoenix leaves. I think here's the thing. Jackson State was playing so well that you were in a hole if you're South Carolina State. And then you drop the pass in the end zone. Not that it would have made a difference. You have inaccurate passes. That would have made a difference. So that hole that you're already in, you're just digging yourself more and more deeper and deeper into the hole. I don't want to say that that's the reason you lost, but I do think that the spread, the margin of defeat, that is partially because of the self-inflicted wounds. It's because when you have a field goal and you forced Jackson State into a field goal, you jump off sides with it. You can't jump off sides, and now you give them a touchdown instead of 3. South Carolina State, simple and plain, had no margin for error, and they continue to have error after error after error after error. That wasn't acceptable. You can't have inaccurate passes. You can't drop passes in the end zone. Uh, you can't jump off sides and give them another set of downs and it leads to a touchdown. These are things that you just objectively cannot do. And South Carolina State did them. That's a problem. That is a problem to me. And that's the reason that you lost 28-7. Simple and plain. Yeah, so when you look at these, I want to just make sure I hit all of the self-inflicted wounds. This is my closing statement. This is a closing statement because 90% of the game you didn't really have the opportunity to do anything, but 10% you did. You messed that up. And TC Taylor has this idea of defense. When one side's down, the other side picks them up. That was not present. I said we need to change that if we're Jackson State in the Celebration Bowl. It's not if one side's down, we'll pick them up. It's we all need to be on our you-know-what. That happened. That happened for JSU. On the other side, it's we all messed up. And now with South Carolina State, 28-7. Different types of defense. Anyway, tomorrow we'll look at Jackson State secondary because I think that they did a phenomenal job and we need to highlight them. They are really the MVP, but the problem is we can't give it to an entire unit. So we'll look at that on tomorrow's episode. In the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.